Victor Dwyer, and this is the Marketing Perspective podcast. And today we have Talal, and his company is called Brand Together. And we're going to go through some predictions of what the e-commerce landscape is going, because it's really important to understand where the future of things are going and where we're headed to, so that way we can understand what to expect in the next couple of years. So Talal's going to give us like an intro of who he is, what his business does, and then we'll start going to like a normal conversation of like predictions of the e-commerce world. So yeah, Talal, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah.
Uh, my last, I think it'll be the last one of 2021, it's been a fun
No.
2021. No, it's fun. I'm actually speaking to you from Jordan right now. So I'm across the country, or I guess you probably have some viewers that are going to be, or across the world, I mean, but I'm
Yeah.
sure you have some viewers internationally as well. So it's dark here. So I apologize for the darkness of this room. I don't have my normal setup, but yeah, here I am, and finishing out the year, which was a very fun, I would say, e-commerce year. Not as fun as 2020, but less fun than 2020 year for e-commerce.
Yep.
And I think talking about like what it's going to look like in 2022 is going to be pretty interesting. I run a little agency consultancy called Brand Together, and we're like a cooperative, collaborative style agency where all of our clients know each other, talk to each other, help each other out on different projects. And so that's kind of, we want to be the anti-agency agency, because I used to work for companies and we would onboard agencies, and everything that I hated about agencies we've decided not to do. And so that's kind of how our little shtick is. And we typically don't do like white glove service. We do a lot more of like higher level service, except for advertising, which we do actually do management of. But
Mhm.
yeah, so we've been able to see it all and get a lot. We can get a lot more clients that way, and kind of
Yeah.
see a bigger picture of what's going on. And I think we've started to see our Black Friday, Cyber Monday numbers, and it's been pretty cool. It wasn't as good as last year, but it was still a little bit better than I had thought it was going to be. It was a very
Can you go
soft
into
Black
that?
Friday.
Can you go into that for a second?
Yeah.
I my best client saw a so like a normal client saw about a 2 or 3 times on our Black Friday. Most of my clients don't have Cyber Monday stuff, so it's like not like I don't even worry about Cyber Monday. But for Black Friday, a normal client saw about a 2 or 3. Some saw a 2 or 3 times increase, and I had others that saw a 4 times increase. And one of my bigger clients, they saw a 7 times increase, which they were upset about. But like I was like, hey, 7 times increase is still really good. I think it was like a 7 to 10 times. I forgot which one it was, but like yeah, they were definitely expecting bigger on this Black Friday, but it's kind of interesting that it definitely was a lot smaller. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't see a very strong Black Friday across almost all of our clients. It was,
Yeah.
anywhere between 30 and 60% bigger than a typical November day or a typical October day. We had a couple people that did like a couple 100% bigger, but like they had smaller numbers to deal with, or were a very seasonable product. And so I don't count them as part of our calculation.
Yeah.
But Cyber Monday we saw did a little bit better than Black Friday,
Mhm.
which yeah. So Cyber Monday definitely this year has been stronger, and I think last year Cyber Monday was stronger than Black Friday for our clients as well.
Wow.
Which is something that we're starting to see a trend like switch more to Cyber Monday for like products. Um,
Mhm.
at the end of the day, I think people are looking for a deal on Black
Yeah.
Friday, Cyber Monday. Yeah, there is increased traffic, and just by virtue of being online, some of the people who were running no deals that we were working with also had their like bump just by sheer traffic. But it was really the significant deals on expensive products are the ones that had the higher bumps. And I think
Yeah.
that's what people are searching for when they're on Black Friday, Cyber Monday. They're looking for really good deals of things that they've been of products that they've been putting off.
Mhm.
So that's why you notice, like in grocery, for example, like next to no bump in grocery. Like people aren't looking for like a cheaper grocery product.
Yeah.
you know, they want like a camera bag or an appliance. Something that they want to either gift or they want to gift themselves, and just don't and want to kind of. I think there's a lot of psychology that goes on in Black Friday, Cyber Monday, where people feel like they're treating themselves to a deal,
Yeah.
as opposed to just putting that purchase, whenever it was. One thing that I found interesting as a buyer, and I think it's fairly common, but I never, when I do like a big sales day, like Prime Day, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and
Mhm.
you know how when you're checking out on Amazon, they give you kind of the options of like when do you want your product, like the shipping times. So
Yeah.
it's like next day or 2-day delivery. I always choose the slowest delivery time on Black Friday and Cyber Monday.
Really?
Um, yeah, because first of all, they always give you like something to do. They always give you like $2 of like Amazon credit, like Amazon digital
Oh
download.
yeah, yeah.
There's always some good little deal there. And if you do multiple orders, you can kind of stack them. But the other reason why I always do it is because people are pretty unscrupulous with how they set up their sales. And a lot of times you notice the week after Black Friday, Cyber Monday, the sales are even better than on Black Friday, Cyber Monday.
True.
And so I always put it out further. So that gives me the option to have the better deal, or then to go back and I go and check all of the purchases that I made. And if it's cheaper, I'll just go cancel and then repurchase on the cheaper deal without having to feel like a schmuck for buying the cheaper product. So
Yeah.
that's the problem with I think that's kind of like the issue with our industry in general, is like there's a lot of like unscrupulous deal making, like when it comes to consumers and messing with the psychology. I'm sure everyone has seen that meme where it's like the price is like 25, 25, 25, and it's like week before Black Friday it's like 45, now 25, and it's like, come on, people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
But
great.
that's not good brand building, right? That's the Amazon seller does things like that. A
True.
true good brand won't do stuff like that because they know they'll alienate their customers. And like if you're really building a true brand, meaning you're starting to think about your product as being something that you want repeat purchases for, or something that you won't know that you want word of mouth for, like trying to snake another $3 to $5 from your customers, is not going to get you that long term value. And that's fine. That there is a business case to be made for the Amazon seller, right? Someone who's
Mhm.
just trying to be a one and done on their whatever Alibaba product that they decided to put together. But if you're sitting there and you're actually wanting to build a brand, you have to really think about like not pissing your customers off.
And I think there's a balance in there as well. So, like, if you think about it, what if you discount the heavily on the price of the product, get them we call them product we call them a customer acquisition products, where it's super low priced, get them introduced to the brand where they can eventually find the higher priced products, and where we may our margin on that particular product is really really small, but that gets them introduced to the brand, then they start purchasing more products, and the lifetime value of that is extremely large. So I think there's a balance of discounting your product to potentially pull in more Amazon market share to get them introduced to the brand, then starting from there. But I'm 100% down, like 100% with you on the trying not to alienate your customer, not discounting. Like, it's like it really comes down to your brand is the most important part, but there are certain ways to get the customer aligned and get them introduced to the brand as well.
Oh, for sure. And
Mhm.
so where I was going with this was like, hyping up a Black Friday, Cyber Monday deal, and then the next week it being cheaper than that hyped deal that you made. Like, at least wait 2 weeks,
Yeah.
at least like
Yeah.
have the person feel like they got smacked in the face. But then when you actually bring up a really cool point, you're talking about kind of like a loss leader or an introduction type product where like the margin is going to be either break even or you might even lose a little bit to get people introduced to the
Mhm.
brand. And one funny thing that I've noticed is your discount shopper is not a good lifetime value customer either. And
True.
so if you do a cohort analysis, and this is especially true when we're talking about products whereby there's like a fast moving consumer good, like a grocery product, or like
Mhm.
a, let's say like a toothpaste or something like that.
Mhm.
If our price is typically $10 and we're trying to either sample it out or sell it for $2, that $2 customer is very 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 unlikely to become a repeat purchaser, because when you
Mhm.
give such a heavy discount, the buyers of that product, like that's a terrible cohort of buyer because they only want cheap prices. And so once it's
Yeah.
$10, they sit there and they're like, I don't want this anymore, now it's too expensive. So
Yeah.
discounting a couple bucks though, you find that the repeat purchaser rate of like a full price product to like a couple percent off, like 10% off or whatever, is much closer. And so it's all
Mhm.
about repeat purchase rates. And I think in 2022, if we're talking about strategy for 2022, is really sitting there and trying to figure out how you can do a cohort analysis of your buyers, and like realize when I ran this super big deal, I got all these order IDs. So I find their buyer emails and I can like say, okay, how many times do I see this buyer email coming back? And if they're repeat purchases, I guess you can't really do it as easily as you used to be able to,
Mhm.
like doing a repeat purchase analysis, but you could still kind of do it. Um,
Can you
and
go
you can
into that?
do
Like
it against
how, like at least for Amazon or like, yeah, it's pretty easy to do that on Shopify, but how would you do something like that on Amazon? Do you have like, I know you can still download the customer list and do that. Do you do it manually? Is there a tool you use to find lifetime value per product? Like what? How do you do that analysis for at least
yeah,
for Amazon?
frankly, I haven't done one in the last year,
Mhm.
since they really like took away the buyer names and everything that we used to do.
Yeah.
I'm and don't quote me on this because I haven't done it, but like I'm still pretty certain that for FBA you can get that fake Amazon email address
Yeah.
and you can do it off of that as your unique key essentially.
Mhm.
Um, but
The
yeah,
only
don't
problem is that would
I
be
just
like
haven't
a
done it.
million rows if you
Yeah,
were to do it like for lifetime value. That'd be a lot of rows.
yeah, no, for sure. But like you do like the value. There's a couple of them. There's like one's called like the recency, frequency, and monetary value cohort analysis. RF I think was like RFMCV or something like that.
Mhm.
MV. And it's a really cool way to do a cohort analysis of like groups of customers, and then you follow them throughout their history or throughout the future and see like if they're coming back. But yeah, again, like the people that once 3 or 4 years ago, I was working for an energy drink company, and doing Amazon, and we did a lightning deal on Thanksgiving night, and we did something like insane, like 70% off, and it was featured on Amazon's like front page, and we became the number one energy drink for like the weekend because we just sold a crap ton of this drink. Literally, and we had a repeat purchase rate of over like 45 to 55% regularly.
Mhm.
The cohort of the people who purchased on that lightning deal was like 17% repurchase rate or 15%. Like, no, that was
Wow.
great. Like, we were the number one, and all the vanity metrics that make people, like, everyone talks about, BSR. Like, who cares about BSR? It's just a vanity metric at the end of the day to tell you that you're
Yeah.
doing well. Like, the sales number is more important, right? But so we could say that, and like you could show that to people, like, oh, look, we were the number one energy drink this weekend. But at the end of the day, none of those people came back, and so like, who
Yeah.
cares? We sold those drinks at a loss, and so we made no money off of that deal.
But that's a fascinating conversation because like we've hardly ever talk about repeat purchase rates and like bringing the customer back, but like for the future of everything that's going on, like I think this is like really important to like for at least for the Amazon seller, they're mostly out of the loop when it comes to lifetime value. And I know there are certain tools and certain like dashboards to figure that information out, but I think going forward knowing the lifetime value per product is actually like really important. Like it really is when it comes to like how much to advertise. Like you may go from spending $10,000 a month, but then realize your lifetime value of the customer is triple of what you thought it was. And now that 100% A cost that you're spending that you're saying, oh, we're not making any money on, then you can go from, oh, we can actually spend probably 150% A costs. And now you
Totally.
went from spending 10,000 dollars on advertising to maybe 15,000.
Yeah,
So I think that conversation is fascinating because you might be able to get some more data points to make some more better decisions off of. So
for,
that would be
for sure.
valuable.
Yeah, and so if you want to do it in a way that's like not super convoluted, and you are running enough sponsored brand and like DSP type advertising, they have a metric called new to brand. Um,
Oh yeah.
and especially the new to brand metrics in terms of like that's how many people have purchased your brand in the last year, I believe is how they define it.
Yeah.
Um, and so when you're looking at a new to brand metric and you are advertising to those people and you're spending a ton of money on DSP ads because like it's really not a great way to advertise profitably
Yeah.
unless you're doing like a what's it called? Like a very bottom of the funnel type ad type, right? Like a
Mhm.
retargeting or but if you're doing some top of funnel stuff and you notice that like your ROAS is pretty low
Mhm.
on the top of funnel, but in the new to brand to metric, that's okay if you know that you have a product that people are purchasing over and over and over again.
True.
So like learning what your lifetime value, your typical lifetime value is, all of a sudden that 100, like you said, exactly like you said, like that 100% ACOS product, like if you have 4 turns in a year and
Yeah.
that person's going to come and buy, your product 4 times, like that's cool. At that point, you have like now a 25% ROAS, right?
Yeah.
Not the best math, but like give or
Yeah.
take a little bit.
Yeah.
um, yeah. So that's kind of an important metric to be very well aware of. And the other
Mhm.
thing that people need to be honest with themselves is like, are people really going to purchase my product twice? And so some people are selling something like shelving, or they're going to be selling something that's going to be
Yeah.
like a one-time only purchase.
Yeah.
And so at that point, you have to just realize like unless there's like some sort of net promoter value that you have, like people then go and then tell their friends about it, and like that's kind of really hard to measure. But
Yeah.
unless you have a product that is like that, it's really difficult to justify spending more than you're bringing in
Yeah.
when it comes to advertising or any sort of marketing expenditure in that case.
Yeah, that's true. You do have to make sure it's actually a repeatable product, but a lot of that, at least a lot of my clients have repeatable products, so it's pretty nice. And then you can like start looking at the subscribe and save data that
Oh yeah, that's
Amazon
the other
gives
thing that
you.
you get a good column for. Yeah.
Yeah. And I have some clients that like literally 40% of their sales come from subscribe and
Yeah.
save. So it's a big deal if you're in like in that space where people like to subscribe and get it to their door. So it's a big deal sometimes if you have those repeatable products.
Oh,
It's interesting.
100%.
So
Yeah.
yeah. And then like going to 2022 and some years beyond that, what what are you going to see? What do you think that is going to happen in the e-commerce space that is different from where it is right now? Where do you see it going, and how do you see it changing from how should sellers adapt to those new changes, and how do you see it kind of where do you think it's going?
So I think like it's very clear that e-commerce is here to stay, right? A lot of the slower moving legacy companies are starting to jump into e-commerce more and more. And so we're
Yep.
talking about like the big conglomerates, like the P&Gs and like the big beverage companies of the world, who for the many many years have very very traditional retail channels, and then their retail wholesale partners were the ones that would put their products online. Now
Mhm.
you're seeing that they're going directly to the channels themselves, and they're building out their own channels. And so
Yep.
that's one big thing that I think that you're going to start to see more and more of. I think it's going to have some sort of so remember the whole cut the cord, people cutting cable
Oh yeah. Yeah.
10 years
Yeah.
ago, right? When Hulu and Netflix were just starting to get big. And then you had Amazon Prime and Hulu and Netflix. And that was basically, you had those three and you had basically everything, right? And then the,
Yep.
the premium channels, the HBOs and the Showtime. Now you have the Peacock Network and Paramount Plus and Nickelodeon and blah, 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 and Disney Plus and etc. And so it's now becoming cable again, right? Just by another name. Like now you're spending as much as you used to spend on cable. And you're like, I don't want any of this. I just want. And so I think we're going to start to see that with e-commerce. So you're going to start to see a lot more bifurcation of people's, getting their stuff onto their own channels. Again, like what I said, like with the P&Gs and the SCJs and the Pepsis and like the Cokes of the world are going to start to sell their stuff more online, where they're allowed to. And that's one big thing that we're going to start to see happen for sure. I also think that grocery stores are starting to get more and more starting their own like online versions as well. And so
Mhm.
that's like either white labeling that through Instacart or going at it alone. When they go at it alone, it barely ever works. So I think most of it is going to be like Instacart and the Shift, or at least the white labeled version of that. You notice that a lot in Texas now. So like Instacart had, if anyone is listening from Texas, like knows HEB, which is one of the largest grocery chains in Texas, if not the largest grocery chain in Texas. And they were using Instacart for the longest period of time. And then all of a sudden they're like, you know what, we're going to do our own one, and now have their own one. And it actually works pretty well. And I think you're going to start to notice more people start to want to take control of their channels. And it totally makes sense, right? We sit here on as Amazon sellers, if the Amazon sellers who are listening to this, and are at the whims of like some faceless bot that gets things wrong more times than it gets things right.
Yeah.
You have millions of sellers. A lot of them are unscrupulous. So I understand it from Amazon's perspective of them being able to have more false positive, or I guess false negatives. It doesn't matter for them because at the end of the day, you know, who cares? It's like a couple $1,000,000 here and there, but
Yeah.
but it's everything, right? For the seller, it's literally anywhere between 30 and 100% of their revenues are coming from Amazon.
Yeah. True.
And so, that balance of power is so outside of the brands and the manufacturer's control, and like to the point where you almost have to start taking care of yourself. And by that I mean like really start investing in the brand, in your Shopify or your BigCommerce or native channel of choice. Diversification. I think Walmart's going to start to make some plays. Unfortunately, the Walmart system, all Walmart has to do, I hope there's a Walmart person listening, but literally all Walmart.com has to do is say, why are everyone pissed off with Amazon? And then change. And instead they don't. They're like, oh, everyone hates it on Walmart, on Amazon. Why don't they just hate it here more? But like Walmart could kill Amazon if they just were smart and had the foresight enough to be like, our systems are terrible. Like, why don't we make them better than Amazon? And why don't we become more friendly than Amazon? Now, it's in Walmart's DNA to be terrible to their suppliers, right? 20, 30 years ago, we all know this. Like, Walmart is not a good partner to have ever. And like
Yeah.
Walmart has put tons of businesses almost out of business by just merely signing a supplier agreement with them. And so like that's the big thing to watch out for, is like these big groups are not on your side. So like you could diversify with them in case one shuts you down, and then you have the other one back up. But the only way that you're ever going to be truly in control of your own destiny is if you start building your own brand and your own website.
True. True. That's 100% right. And when it comes to Walmart, how much growth right now, like we have clients that are on Walmart, and it's very, very small amount of the sales like actually come through that. How much more do you see Walmart expanding more than it is now? Do you see it like potentially in the next 5 years exploding and being, because we all know that Walmart has the capability, because like there's some crazy statistic that 95% of the US population is within 15 minutes of a Walmart. And that's
Yeah.
like crazy. That actually is crazy. So they, when it comes to shipping and the logistics, they do have the strong capability to do it. We know that. But when it comes to the consumer and the online version of the consumer actually using it, buying it, and going through that, what do you see? Do you see that as like it really taking off and being successful? Do you see as Walmart still having issues and not being able to do that? What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've already seen it happening. We see the trajectory is going towards it's whether or not it's going to take off like entirely is another thing. But so they bought Jet.com like 5 years ago. That was a spectacular flop. And then they folded in Jet.com to Walmart.com, and now it's just all Walmart.com. And a lot of the Jet.com people are still there, but I think like the talent pool of the Jet.com was really, really low. And I don't know. Like, I mean, if I had billions of dollars, I would not have invested in it.
Yeah,
So, but whatever. That's the thing. They have billions in dollars, that they
yeah,
can invest in stuff. Now, the Walmart fulfillment center, like Walmart super centers as a fulfillment center, I feel like people are overplaying
hmm,
that portion of it. And the reason being is like a Walmart super center is built to sell groceries and like light electronics, right? It's not really built to house, Joe Schmo's Alibaba product.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, if you've been to those back rooms, I've been to those back rooms because I worked in retail, and like they're not, there's not room in those back rooms in those for everything. It's
yeah.
a whole different thing to have a fully automated, 150,000 square foot Amazon fulfillment center, more so than it is like a Walmart super center, of just like a grocery, and essentially like a super grocery store, right? Or a super,
Mhm.
what would you call Walmart at? Like a big box retailer.
Yeah,
So unless they're able to retrofit and kind of really figure out like, how they're going to move those people's third party products around, I just don't see like that being their big strong suit. But
true.
I could be wrong.
Like, they do have the logistics down to like of getting a lot of product within their stores. So like maybe the back rooms may not be the point, but they are able to go like the like the go and shop where they like go and shop for you and they like bring all the stuff, all the groceries over to and drive it over to your house. I forgot what it's called. It's some Amazon service. But
Fresh,
that what's it called?
Amazon Fresh.
Fresh, maybe, yeah. Where they like you pick out all the stuff and they drive it to your house, something like that, within like 2 hours.
Yeah, so they had Prime now, and now they have like they still have Amazon Fresh that you can get within a couple hours.
Mhm. Yeah, like just like
Yeah,
something like that, like where because the customer really likes the speed of things, like getting things really fast, and Amazon could really almost never do 2 hour shipping unless they do something like crazy. But Walmart actually has the capability to do that, which is a huge advantage rather than Amazon because they're able to actually shop for the customer, put it in a car, and then drive it to them within 2 hours. That's kind of interesting.
yeah, and I think that's going to work with like Walmart products more so than it's going to work with like our products. And by
True.
our, I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. You're right.
because
You're
again,
right.
you have to distribute your products across all of those,
True.
those super centers, and we're talking about like I think 8,000 Walmart super centers in the United States, some ridiculous number like that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
no one has that much inventory, like generally, and
Yeah.
so that's I think that's kind of like that's the big that's the big thing. Like so the products that are already sold in Walmart retail for sure, like that's going to start to become more of a thing. But let's not let's like not pretend that that's really a a huge driver of stuff.
True.
And yeah,
True. Yes. Yeah. That makes sense. So what else do you see happening? I kind of cut you off midway. What else do you kind of see happening in 2022 and all like the future years with e-commerce and everything else there?
um, I think we really need to figure out this whole supply chain issue,
Yeah,
right?
that would be important.
Yeah. I think it was kind of a really big wake up call, and people are finally starting to wake up to like China's not the end all be all place to get your product. So I think you're going to start to see a lot more diversification in supply chain. People are going to start to be more open minded and looking for and actually being like more, yeah, I would say open minded and like more proactive in looking for different chains. I think people were just getting a little lazy jumping on Alibaba or whatever and going, and figuring out what they're going to get made.
Yeah.
So hopefully that means more people are going to start to visit more factories around, Mexico and Canada and India and look at different countries out there. Yeah, so that's one of the bigger things. Really, really proves that we need infrastructure, right? So like
Yeah.
the US actually has really bad infrastructure. So like the infrastructure bill hopefully should really help out with that, like
Yeah.
starting to like modernize our ports and our highway systems and I don't know, like automation is hopefully going to be much better, the technology in general in the next 5 years. So I don't want to say 2022 in general. I think like we have to look 5 to 10 years in the future, but
Mhm.
automation when it comes to port automation and self-driving trucks and ways that we can start to get products moved in and out of warehouses faster and more efficiently and more accurately, I think is the other big issue. So
Yeah.
these are all these kind of like, you know, not really eye-opening things that I'm talking about. I think this is all like the normal, like sort of, yeah, of course, this is where we're going to be headed to. But this year has really proven to a lot of people that there are major, major constraints in what we currently have.
Yeah.
And then from both a public standpoint and a private standpoint. So like from the ports all the way down to like Amazon's fulfillment centers and not being able to handle our sales this year.
That's true. That's true. And like I think it's really important in the future to like I think COVID really showed us that having a 3PL strategy is like critical. That you can't just have all your inventory like in Amazon, having all your inventory in one place because if Amazon goes through another inventory restriction, restock limits, or like all of a sudden all your thing gets suspended and you can't then all your entire business shuts down. Like I think having a 3PL strategy like anywhere is just a smart move so that way you're not limited by if you do get suspended or things anything else, because I've literally seen Amazon suspend just the FBA listing, but kept the 3PL listing live. So we actually never got suspended because they just they just banned the FBA listing, so it ended up working. But
Yeah.
it's like important to have that in place, because if you didn't, you would lose a lot of sales. So it's
Yeah.
important.
No, I mean that totally happens. We had the exact same thing happen for a product of ours that was like all of the stuff they thought at FBA was expired, even though it wasn't. So they just banned the expired listing
Yeah.
or like the FBA listing. But if it wasn't for having the merchant fulfilled part of that not being blocked, like that would have been a really terrible Q4. While we
Yeah, what have.
so yeah, so that's kind of a everyone should have a warehouse. And so here's the funny thing is Amazon is trying now to be your 3PL warehouse as well. So Amazon is pushing multi-channel fulfillment, MCF. I'm sure we've all received those emails. I'm actually like really good friends with one of the guys at Amazon that does it. Um, and so yeah, so and we found people that had MCF and were willing to have Amazon take control of their multi-channel fulfillment, meaning fulfill their Shopify channels. Essentially, is what that means. We could get their restock limits increased. So if you need your restock limits increased, talk to me. I can hook you up as long as you want to give your stuff to Amazon. And now Amazon's also going to be working a lot this year on MCF. They're going to start to that just based on the emails that I'm seeing from like Amazon's marketing team talking about MCF more and more and more. And another thing that we're going to notice them talk about more and more is their upstream service, which is, I think, something that a lot of people, especially international sellers, are really going to be interested in. And that upstream service is basically these holding cells for your product before it goes to a true FC. It'll go to like basically a FBA prep center that can hold your products at cheaper storage rates, prep them for you, and then send them into Amazon on your behalf. Now, whether or not you trust Amazon to do all that, because we've seen how many times that their fulfillment centers make mistakes and you have next to no recourse when there's major mistakes, that's up to you, right?
Yeah.
And so
I thought that was
hopefully,
only for vendor. Is that for Seller Central people too?
which one, the upstream
Upstream.
service?
Yeah.
I have a feeling it's going to start to open up. I mean, it makes sense
Yeah.
just based on whenever they pilot a program, it's eventually going to make its way to
Sure.
third party.
Yeah, like that would be really exciting to see that, because like a lot of this, like having the manual process of like having to send in like a whole thing, like that way you can just send it like 500 units rather than doing these like I've literally had a client have a 30 restock limit. Like you're just like 30, like it's not even profitable. You like lose all the money on shipping. It's just it's crazy. So yes, having a 3PL and like having that upstream service, that like I see that taking over in the future too on e-commerce. Having like things like that automatically restock is going to be a huge play when it comes to inventory and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, they have all the data, so they're going to know if they can get your stuff from your 3PL, and by your 3PL, I mean their 3PL, to their fulfillment centers,
Mm-hmm.
and can hold it for you at a cheaper storage rate, and it doesn't affect your inventory limits and stuff like that. Like that sounds like the no-brainer approach. So
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to ever give it to sellers this year or next year or whenever, but
Mm-hmm.
the fact that it's being a piloted program right now and we're seeing emails about upstream service come from the Amazon marketing team, it means it's eventually going to make its way to us.
Yeah. And I'm curious, what is Amazon's incentive for the multi-channel fulfillment? Do they just want to control everything? Because like they're so like bogged down with like fulfillment stuff. Like I would think they would prioritize everything Amazon right now when it comes to fulfillment stuff. And I'm surprised they're even trying to push multi-channel fulfillment, because they're having trouble fulfilling Amazon stuff, much less like multi-channel. So like what is their incentive? Why do you think they're pushing that?
Beats me, man.
Yeah, it doesn't it doesn't make sense to me.
unless it truly is all about controlling like all of the logistics chain, like being the entire, supply
Shipping.
chain, right?
Yeah,
Like,
right. Yeah, really, the entire supply chain of
yeah,
shipping. Yeah.
I mean, we're hearing about them now building their own containers, right? Because of the container glut and like doing their own, getting more and more of their own freight. Like you're going to see Amazon Freight enter shipping much more. So instead of using third party, I think that they're going to have big ass Amazon boats, right? Hopefully they don't
Amazon.
get
Jeff
stuck in the
Bezos.
Nile, or not the Nile. What was it in the Suez Canal? um, And yeah, so I think it is really just a total domination move, total global domination move on everything from A to Z. Like, their little smile, the Amazon A to Z, and I think A to Z for them really does mean the entire supply chain.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. And I guess they're going to like just future wise, I think that would be a play that they're going to try to do. And they're going to try to really squeeze out UPS, FedEx, and they're really going to try to be literally ever like be the next shipping like person as well, and really just try to dominate just everything in the like shipping, like with the Amazon drones and everything else. So we're talking about like Amazon already owns like basically like what is it, 40% of the internet with AWS, and then like everything shipping wise. That's fascinating that they might actually be another a shipping provider that can really take on UPS and FedEx and things like that, where almost everyone uses them. That's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're gonna start to see like Uncle Sam knock on their door pretty soon, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can't really do all of that, plus have like these communication issues with like sponsored posts, and plus like having your own products look like other products but get prominent placement, and like,
Yeah.
at some point there are some antitrust issues that are clearly coming into play here.
Yeah.
And so how all of that shakes out, I don't know. I don't know how fast it's going to move either. Whether it's going to be sometime this year or next year, where we're going to start to see some real hearings, not like some of like, and then of
What are you
course,
doing?
yeah, no one's going to get what's going on here. But like, yeah,
I
I don't know. But this
I
domination play isn't helping them, in my opinion. But there are smarter people in that room than I am, and so
like I honestly don't see the government doing anything because there's so much money at play. Like if you like let's say if like someone the government tries to break up Amazon in some way, that I think they're so powerful and they have so much money that they can influence like everyone in that room enough to where nothing could happen. Like that's my opinion on like if you try to break up Amazon right now and like not make it where it gets bigger, like I really think that it's so big that you could pay off everyone in the room. Like they could literally pay everyone in that room $15 million and then say, "Oh, yep, that's it." Like and like or like whatever, even $50 million probably, and they could still afford it and still make more. Like because they're like a $2 trillion company, so they probably can do something like that. So I don't honestly don't see them being able to get broken up anytime soon or
yeah.
ever.
I mean, I think it's gonna. I think we're gonna see hearings. I think there's gonna be some sort of lip service. Like, remember when Microsoft was broken up into .net and like .com or whatever it was, and like,
Oh
has that affected any one of us ever? Like,
no.
no.
No. But yeah, that is fascinating though. And what else do you kind of seeing on the Amazon spectrum? So are you like obviously we know Amazon's going to get more competitive and everything else. What else are you seeing with I guess just e-commerce in general? What else are you going to see that is different from what's happening right now? Like within maybe the consumer mindset, it could be within the platform itself. What else do you see that is going to change in the future when it comes to e-commerce?
uh, Man, I feel like my predictions are always like one step wrong, right? Like, and so I don't know. I don't know if I really want to conjecture much more around that. Just
Yeah.
because
Okay.
it, it it always just seems like what you think is going to happen eventually happens, but it just happens in a kind of different manner. And so,
Sure. Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, I really think like the biggest thing here is Amazon's going to make it much harder to be organically
Relevant. Yeah.
relevant. And so like there's going to be a lot more inventory spaces for advertising. They know that that's their most profitable sector. So I think it's going to become more pay to play. Amazon truly is right now a race to the bottom. They're just raising their fees. So like you're going to have to raise your fees. And I guess a little bit of that is inflation and a little bit of that is like, yearly fee increases. But
Yeah.
it, there's it's getting too difficult, and there's too many hidden fees that are popping up, and they're not really hidden, they're actually out there. But for example, disposal and removal fees. If you have a product that weighs 3 or 4 pounds, you're now going to have to be spending dollars, right, per removed products. And look at your like unfulfillables that you get every month. We're talking thousands of dollars a month are now going to start to go to disposing your products on Amazon. And
True.
they're going to start pushing liquidations more, so they can like take, they're going to be like, instead of $3 you'll spend 40 cents, but we'll liquidate it for you. Then 3 months later you find some rando listing on your listing from
Yeah.
like Steals and Deals or something like that. You know what I mean?
Steals
Like one of
and
the
deals.
damn arbitragers who just destroy your brand. Yeah, I think you're going to start to notice more and more in that. And like, this is my biggest push to everyone. My biggest plea to all my clients and everything is, once again, coming back to the first thing I said on this, is like, you need to start writing out Amazon as your main channel. It has to be and you can focus on Amazon as being a marketing channel and not a sales channel. That's when you're going to start to succeed, as long as you have a good product. If you have
Yeah.
a crappy product, throw it on Amazon.
And it really goes down to like ideology, like, or like mindset. Like, you have to like go into the mindset that you're not an Amazon seller, you're a brand. Like, you're not like when you're an Amazon, you're not just a seller, you are a brand. You're trying to grow like other channels. You're not just an Amazon seller, because they get in the mindset that's like, yep, I'm an Amazon seller, that's all I do. But like, no, you're a brand. You're trying to increase and gain like all other and just you treat Amazon as a channel and not your business. Like,
Totally.
it's the way to do it. And like
Yeah.
that, and like that's why it's really important to go in that direction. But I wanted to talk to you about the rising cost and cost per clicks, because during Black Friday, like the 3 days about November 19th, November 20th, we saw our cost per clicks across all our clients double. Like all the way up to this, like we've seen about like 20% increases month over month on our cost per clicks for advertising, Amazon ads, and then all of a sudden it all doubled, making where advertising is just all of a sudden went double the expense. Like, it now costs, now we if you had a 50% A cost now, you'd be sitting at 100% A cost, or you'd be getting like half the sales. So you basically have to spend double to get the same amount of sales you got before. So I wanted to get your thoughts like on what you're seeing on your side, and also like how to maybe counteract that. Like, what are some methods to maybe lower cost per click, or like what are some ways to deal with that?
Yeah. So I haven't noticed as dramatic of an increase
Hmm.
for cost per clicks over the year, but like, it's definitely gone up, maybe between 20 and 30% year over year,
Hmm.
with our CPCs. And we did not get a double, luckily, for Black Friday, Cyber
Really?
Monday.
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
we saw it pretty close. I would say maybe like a 20, again, maybe the 20-30% over that 20 to 30% increase. So like, not
Hmm.
quite double. But another big thing that we do is we try to control for cost per click a lot. And at some point you have to come up with like whether or not you're trying to sell for the sake of selling, or if you're selling for the sake of making money. And both strategies are legitimate depending on what your business objectives and your business goals are.
True.
And if you're selling to sell, you'll notice that a lot more with companies who are trying to just like, sell their business. Well, I mean, you want to be a little bit more profitable in that case, but like selling to sell for like people who are, backed by investors, and they have these revenue targets that they have to hit. And like,
Hmm.
they're like, oh, we have investor money, and like, they don't really care about profitability just yet. So we just want to keep gaining market share, keep getting sales. I'm like, okay, we'll do it. I really don't want to, but we'll do it. um, and then there's the other ones who are very, very strict on like, we need to hit these tacos targets. And so like, I don't really believe in ACOS. It's ROAS, ACOS, like whatever. That's not, I don't believe in it. It's a good way to like see some sort of return number. But at the end of the day, you have a blended tacos number, or ACOTS, I think is a better name for it, right?
Yeah.
Advertising cost of total sales. That number is the be all end all for your marketing expenditures, or at least your advertising expenditures on Amazon. That's the amount of margin that you're willing to give up for your product, for advertising. And
Yeah.
so if your CPCs increase and your ACOS increases, but somehow you're still able to find other places to decrease it, or you're able to at least control for it by somehow getting like higher up in organic ranking, because those words that you are converting on are now really expensive, so no one else really wants to deal with them. And by virtue of like the flywheel effect, you're going to start to raise in ranking and get more organic rank from that. So controlling for your ACOTS number, your tacos number, is where your focus should be in 2022, and setting up that margin number as like, this is where I'm comfortable. Another way you can think about it, if you don't want to look at it as ACOTS, is a cost per acquisition or a cost per new. Hard to say new acquisition because Amazon doesn't make it very easy, but like cost per acquisition in general.
True.
And if that's a number that you're comfortable with, then like who cares about the increase in cost? Like as long as you can maintain that number. And you might
True.
ask me, but if your CPCs are increasing, that number is going to increase. And so that's where it comes down to think about whether or not you have more movement in your price. Can you increase your product by $1 or $2? Will it still have the same sales? Can you increase your product by $2 or $3 and then start to play more with like temporary price reductions or coupons or other channels of like, you know, click through and conversion optimizing activities? Yeah, so I mean that's kind of where the big game is really figuring out and being strong about your numbers. Everyone always wants to focus on like the sexy things like advertising this, that, like, and no one really wants to sit there and do the work and the math around their numbers. And I think like figuring out your lifetime values, your tacos, like all of these like true numbers is going to be really important in 2022. Sorry, this should have been important in 2016. But definitely better do it in 2022 because there's just so much more competition. And if you're just a little bit more savvy than your competition, they're going to go out of business before you will. And that's kind of the game.
Yeah, that's right. And I need to start implementing a way to get the lifetime value, and even like it would be really cool to get it on a product level basis. Finding the lifetime value on a product level basis would be really, really fascinating. And like I think I need to start doing a better job of bringing that in, because on the dashboards it's more like advertising and overall sales, like how we're doing, but and I have even cost per click and conversion rates there, but having that ability to have lifetime value in there would be very, very valuable. Which I need to kind of start working toward. I think that'd be really interesting to find a product level basis of lifetime value.
Yeah, the big
Yeah.
step in lifetime value is there's so many definitions of lifetime value. So
Yeah.
you have to find out one model that you like that works for your business and makes sense, and that's the model you use. Because like some people's lifetime value is based on like margin and interest rate depreciation. Like some people's lifetime value is based on that like RMFCV, whatever the recency, frequency, monetary value. And so the number itself has to make sense in terms of like what your goals and objectives are, and not just a number for the sake of coming up with a number.
Yeah. Yeah. You're 100%
And then
right.
doing it, like you said, at the product level, like it has to be done at a product level, which makes it even harder and more annoying.
Yeah. Like a lot harder. Yeah. But yeah, I think that'll be really valuable insights there. Cool. And is there anything else that you kind of wanted to make sure that either a seller or an e-commerce seller knows or should be aware of with everything that's going on in the landscape, whether if it's future wise, whether if, like what's happening right now with supply chain? Is there anything else that you think it would be valuable for an e-commerce person, e-commerce seller to know right now or to discuss there?
I would hold on to your money if you can, right? Like,
Yeah.
and by that I mean like make sure that you have some padding in your runway, especially for any of these like crazy circumstances that pop up, like if a factory in China shuts down or like that you're able to actually like support you and your staff over the course of a couple of months. Because I don't know if the disruptions are getting less as we're seeing like the backlog is starting to get cleared out, or at least that's officially the position. But there's just so many uncertainties right now geopolitically that I think are going to affect us in 2022. We see a lot of aggression in the South China Sea. We see a lot of aggression in Russia and Ukraine, and I think these things can easily spill over into something that's going to be a lot bigger than we think it's going to be, and like major disruptions happening from an energy standpoint with like the Ukraine issue, and then with shipping lanes in general with China and Taiwan. So let's Be careful. Like
Yeah.
there is a macro level thing that's bigger than who can buy some crappy products on Amazon and for some Prime Day, you know. And so like keep keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, yeah. That's a whole other. That's like outside of e-commerce. That's like world,
Yeah,
like future world war. It's a little bit different, but
yeah.
yes, if you're in the gun space or like bullets, you're perfect. You're wanting that.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't know if anything's gonna become like super major or scary. Like
Yeah,
I don't think anyone in the world really has appetite for a major war right now.
true.
But we fight lots of small little proxy type battles all the time, which affect people very meaningfully, right? In those regions. And unfortunately, the larger cascading effects that happen from those issues will affect our day to day supply chains and logistics in general. And
Yeah, yeah,
things are getting expensive. Like, and
yeah,
I don't think that we have an end in sight, frankly, right now. So just be careful with your money. Don't do crazy expenditures that you don't need.
yeah. Don't go to like whatever, like some fancy buy the Lamborghini or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's always good to have cash flow to pay for everything. 100%.
for sure.
And yeah, so yeah, Talal, let them know how the viewers can find you, like where they can find your website and just how to get in touch with you or anything else there.
Yeah, I took the website down a few weeks ago. I was getting like really nasty attacks on it, and I don't know like if I said something to piss someone off a while
Oh,
ago, but like I got some trolls that were going through the site a lot. So I just took the site down a couple weeks ago.
mhm.
So
You need a
the
recaptcha.
site, I'll bring it back up. It was brandtogether.io. So
Mhm.
that'll be back up in a couple days or so. Maybe I'll do it today if I feel like. Yeah, I don't know. um, so brandtogether.io. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Talal Asad, TALALASAD.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Any final words before we close it off?
Yeah, I think we got some chat questions.
Oh, I was not looking at our chat. Like that's they can what should be I think we already discussed this for the most part, like what should be
Yeah.
the marketing strategies for the upcoming year.
Mm, math should be your first marketing strategy, right? You
Yeah.
can't manage what you don't measure, or you can't, yeah, that's it. You can't manage what you don't measure. So
Hmm.
starting to really come up with the numbers and doing a number based strategy from either a profitability standpoint or however much runway you have left, that's the number one step.
And I think it's critical that you have an actionable dashboard, not like a dashboard that has all these numbers that you don't know what it means. That dashboard is useless to you. It's not even worth looking at. But like having an actionable dashboard that you can analyze and say, okay, this is what's happening within my business. I need to increase spend. I need to decrease spend, or like something that you say. You look at the dashboard and say, okay, this is what I need to do with this type of data. And a lot of Amazon sellers don't have that because Amazon scatters everything around. They put it in 10 different spots, 20 different spots. They have to download the reports, and it's really difficult to get it all in one dashboard. But there are certain ways you can still do it and actually develop it to where it's actually actionable and making it where you can like make a lot of really informed decisions off of it. But it all starts with you first have to look at the data, so that's a really important thing in there, actually having a good dashboard so
Yeah,
that we know
you
that.
can use if you want a free dashboard. It's a little slow, and you still have to pull the data unless you get the API credentials, or and even then, I wouldn't deal with that unless you really know what you're doing. But you can use Google Data Studio. Like right now, I'm looking at our Cyber Monday, Black Friday dashboard that we pulled for all the clients, and it's obfuscated, and like I can send this to all of our clients because they all have a company ID that only they know. And
Yeah.
so they can look at themselves compared to everybody else without divulging who everybody else's data is, and then they could see like what their average, what their tacos was over, the 4 day Black Friday Cyber Monday period compared to the benchmark and etc. So Google Data Studio, there's kind of a learning curve on it right now. I hired an intern, computer science major from Duke, and he's he's putting it all together for me right now. And so that's one thing that I think is a good a good
That
kind of dashboard
that's
solution.
what I use for everything. Google Data Studio. I learned it like 2 or 3 years ago, and I used it ever since. So
Yeah.
it's great. It makes it where it's super easy to pull everything in, and the integrations on it are awesome. And it integrates with Google Sheets, which I use religiously, so it makes
Yeah.
it really easy. Cool. So, but yeah, that's basically it when it comes to the questions. But yeah, like feel free. If you ever have any more questions for Talal, you'll feel free to message him directly or anything else like that. And thank you for everyone for watching. And this was the Victor Dwyer Marketing Perspective podcast. And if you ever want to watch more, follow it. And thanks, guys, for watching. Thank you, Talal, for
Cool.
hopping on.
Yeah. You can also email me at talal@brandtogether.io as well.
Perfect. Yep. Go
Thank
message
you
him.
so much
He
for
knows what he's
having me.
talking about. He
Thank
does.
you so much for
Thanks.
having me.